3.5 years, the BSR Access project platform has supported policymakers on the European, national and regional level in fostering access to clean, efficient and multimodal transport corridors in the Baltic Sea region. We are especially grateful for the close cooperation we have had with the coordinators of the core network corridors crossing the Baltic Sea region, as well as the policy area transport coordinators of the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region. Project platforms were introduced as a new instrument in the last Interreg BSR program to connect results from different projects and different funding schemes in one thematic area. BSR Access combined the knowledge from Interreg Baltic Sea region projects NSP Core, Tentacle, EMMA and Scanria to Act, as well as E12 Atlantica Transport of Interreg Botnia Atlantica program, Finest Link of Interreg Central Baltic program, and green regions with alternative fuels for transport funded by the EU's Connecting European facility. The goal of the project platform was to create synergies between the involved projects by collecting, summarizing and spreading good practices of clean, efficient and multimodal transport in the Baltic Sea region. The platform cooperation, despite the unexpected challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, has been a great and important example in connecting different players and stakeholders from the transport sector, not only from the Baltic Sea region, but from all over Europe to jointly tackle bottlenecks and improve accessibility.
Focused on specific topics identified as missing or, in our humble opinion, as not properly addressed in the EU coordinators' issue papers from 2016. Among these topics were coherent alternative fuel models across national borders, integration of urban nodes in the core network corridors, untapped potential of underdeveloped transport modes like rail and inland navigation, the question of first-mile delivery, integrated planning along corridors, and regional development processes of megaprojects. Our partners will go into more detail later on in this video, summarizing the highlights and key findings of nearly 4 years of project work. You can find everything we publish, from reports, news, position papers and so on our website, bsraccess.eu.
BSR Access cooperated closely with the EU strategy for the Baltic Sea region policy area transport and horizontal action special planning coordinators. From 2018 till now, we actively participated in all EU SBSR annual forums, virtual and, if anyone still can remember, the physical events in Tallinn and Gdansk. But these are not the only transnational players that we have teamed up with. In 3.5 years, we shared our knowledge with organizations like WASAP, CPMR, STRING, METREX, the European Rail Freight Corridors, the European Parts Unions, and the list goes on and on. Our work has also contributed to the TEN-T policy review by strengthening the role of the Baltic Sea region in innovation and in digitalization, and as a frontrunner in sustainable economic growth as well as cohesion. The platform proved that the projects are crucial in bringing different policy frameworks together, spanning from the TEN-T, EU SBSR, territorial agendas to regional development plans.
Transnational development projects like BSR Access are remarkable pools of international competence and can enhance competence sharing among their stakeholders. They offer matchmaking between those who work at the grassroots level and those who are in charge in policymaking. BSR Access also showed that long-term commitment of partners in transnational and cross-border cooperation projects can move beyond the life cycle of mere projects and develop into permanent networks and organizations. During the platform years, remarkable steps have been taken within the partnership, like the establishment of Scanria Alliance and the EGTC status for Kvarken Council. The journey of BSR Access has been interesting and challenging at exceptional times, but we have applied and adapted to deliver our outcomes and messages. Let us now listen to our partners who will speak about BSR Access achievements in more detail.
Hello all, all, I am Ilona Mansikka from Helsinki-Uusimaa Regional Council, and we were responsible on the study on regional development processes of megaprojects. This thematic is really relevant for us since in southern Finland there are several new high-speed railway lines under planning, and also our region has an ambitious goal for achieving carbon neutrality by 2030. Seppo Laakso, as the main author of the report, could you tell us what is the focus of this study?
Okay, thank you. The study is focusing on economic impacts of cross-border transport megaprojects in Europe. We selected 6 case projects, all mega-class cross-border railway projects in EU. For example, Öresund Fixed Link, Brenner Base Tunnel, Rail Baltica, and connected with that Helsinki-Tallinn railway tunnel. It is well known that transport investments have direct economic impacts, like traffic cost savings. They are usually analyzed by cost-benefit analysis, which is a highly standardized process. But investments in transport may also have wider economic and social impacts outside the direct ones. Cost-benefit and wider impact analysis offer different perspectives on the long-term effects on the project. These approaches are not alternatives, but rather complement each other.
Okay, Seppo, can you give us some practical examples of what kind of benefits these kind of mega transport projects can bring to the region?
Okay, better accessibility may improve the attractivity of regions and boost growth of regional economy, population and business. It may also improve the efficiency of labor markets. It is important that the stakeholders and planners identify the conditions by which the positive impacts can be realized. For example, by regional development strategy, cooperation between countries and regions, and land use planning.
Okay, can you briefly outline the main conclusions of this study?
Okay, there are major differences between case projects concerning the analysis of wider impacts. The projects connecting 2 or more cities by rail and focused on passenger transport have most potential to have wider impacts to business, labor markets, land use and regional developments. So we recommend that projects in which passenger transport plays an important role are encouraged to analyze the wider impacts from the viewpoints of the regional changes of at least business, labor markets, land use and population.
Thank you, Seppo and your team, for this valuable study and findings that surely are very beneficial and will feed planning discussion both in EU level and in national and regional transport policies.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Mattias Lindström, the director of the Kvarken Council, the cross-border cooperation organization between Finland and Sweden in the Kvarken region. The cooperation in the Kvarken region is since the beginning of 2021 administrated by the Kvarken Council EGTC, and we reformed the association Kvarken Council into an EGTC. EGTC stands for European Grouping for Territorial Cooperation and is the tool formed by the European Union in order to improve and strengthen cross-border cooperation all over Europe. The transition in our region was made to bring us new opportunities to develop and strengthen the region with the help of cross-border cooperation via different cross-border development projects. And as an EGTC, we also have a more robust and powerful tool to push shared important regional questions nationally and on a EU level. In the BSR Access project, the Kvarken Council has been responsible for integrated planning along corridors. We have actually only been 6 partners in the project, but through these partners we represent hundreds of stakeholders in related to integrated planning along corridors. This is because we have a long track record of projects in relation to this theme, and we have utilized these networks that we have created within these projects in the BSR Access project. This is possible when we work together as partners and not consider each other as competitors. I'm very happy that we in the project have managed to identify several key messages in the relation to integrated planning along corridors. I see these key messages like squeezing the crude oil out of coal. These messages will help us intensify collaboration on grassroots level, find more efficient partnerships, and have better dialogue with our national and EU counterparts. For instance, one of our findings really underline the importance of having political key figures for the success of joint transport planning, politicians that really are pushing forward. The work of the European coordinators really binds together the grassroots level and the work in political cabinets that we need to get their voices heard on all different levels, EU levels, national level, regional level, and so forth. Also, a very important finding is that when politicians and decision makers typically have the responsibility to represent the viewpoint of either local, either national, either regional, or EU level, our stakeholder network have the opportunity and the power to present all of them. And this, my friends, is what integrated planning along corridors is all about.
Partners in the BRSA Access project platform, we at Port of Hamburg Marketing looked into best practices of multimodal integration and supply chain, focusing especially on modes of transport that still have a big potential of contributing to greening. When looking at the support for modal shift actions targeting rail and inland waterways transport in the Baltic Sea region specifically, there is still a vast gap in different countries and transport is still predominantly organized via trucks and semi-trailers. Multimodal and interoperable transport solutions need to be strengthened by improving investment coordination among corridors, the core network corridors, the rail freight corridors, and motorways of the sea. If stakeholder involvement is seen as a burdensome but necessary means of enforcing an infrastructure project along the corridors, its true potential will not be realized. Furthering the integration of Rail Baltica and aligning the rail freight corridors are vital in overcoming the fragmentation of the European rail sector. Additionally, more marketing as well as networking activities are necessary to bridge the knowledge gap in the logistics industry of how to successfully incorporate rail and waterway transport into their supply chains. However, without improving information and communication technology, both the European rail and inland navigation sector cannot develop any further. But deployment of both the European Rail Traffic Management System and RIS-COMEX on core corridors is currently heavily delayed. Additionally, as several projects and other organizations have shown, just shifting to a more sustainable mode of transport or just implementing the right infrastructure or ICT tool is not enough anymore to hit the targets set by the Green Deal. Only by ensuring smooth cross-sectional and cross-border cooperation, as well as investing in clean fuel supply every step along the supply chain, from first-mile areas to upgrading the long leg covered by trains or barges to the last-mile delivery, there is a fighting chance in reducing emissions in the transport sector. Most probably, the future is multi-fuel, as well as multi-user, and the technology and restriction to only one mode of transport plug-in should be avoided at all costs. The switch should be supported with appropriate technical regulations, the right taxation incentives, and tailor-made dedicated funding. Many of the challenges in the multimodal sector today are due to the very complex and silo-divided railway and waterway systems across Europe. To make innovation in cross-border transport possible, you need cooperation and really good stakeholder networks working together towards a shared goal. This kind of cooperation does not appear overnight, but is the work of years of partnership. In the past, there were many successful projects like EMMA, X-Extension, Tentacle, GREAT, NSB Core, and so on, that managed to bring together stakeholders from the industry and decision makers from the policy sector. They are remarkable pools of international competence. That's why we expand upon their results and experience in the BRSA Access platform.
Dear participants, my name is Mattias Andersson and I represent Region Blekinge, which Athletic Goa addressing the first mile with great support of Rumble Sweden. Early in the process, a rough definition was created of areas that can be considered as first mile areas in the TEN-T context. In this definition, first mile areas are outside the commuting distance of corridor hubs and nodes. It means, in fact, that if you're within 1 hour of commuting distance, you are actually on the corridors. First mile areas have substantial exporting industries, such as large-scale exporting industries or clusters of smaller-scale exporting industries. The population is often scattered with low density. Freight nodes outside the corridor is not included in the definition, but have a big importance to connect the first mile areas to the TEN-T core network. Our second objection was to identify best practice solutions for the first mile. It's quite interesting, but from all the projects that we investigated, almost none of them clearly addresses the first mile, neither within the identified Interreg or Horizon projects. Now we continue with our recommendations. We recommend that PA Transport addresses the first mile areas, and it could be a flagship process within the PA Transport. The first mile is now also mentioned in the work plan of PA Transport, and we are very happy about that. The continued research could be handled within the governance networks that are active within first mile areas, such as East-West Transport Corridor Association or the Baltic Link Association, to mention two. We need to increase awareness of the first mile. Since the first mile issue are rarely addressed, improving knowledge is essential. Building knowledge can be made by identify first mile areas that might be affected by the implementation of the core network corridors, and by finding best practice and learning examples among national examples, since they are not to be found within the projects that we investigated. The Interreg programs can promote the analysis of the first mile issue by explicitly give priority to project applications with integrated first mile perspective. Giving priority to the first mile issues should be based on the clear policy formulation based on the interface between EU and the national interests. This was my input. Thank you very much.
The Joint Spatial Planning Department, in short JSPD, represents the capital region Berlin-Brandenburg. It is responsible for spatial and state spatial planning for the federal states of Berlin and Brandenburg. It became a project partner in BSR Access to capitalize on project results from previous Interreg B projects to foster a durable, coherent and a cross-sectoral planning approach along the TEN-T core network corridors. As JSPD, we organized a high-level conference on clean fuel deployment in the Baltic Sea region, and we published a key point paper on the interoperability of urban nodes in the TEN-T. In this context, we interviewed 9 urban nodes in the Baltic Sea region in order to identify the central challenges for transport planners and to analyze best practices to tackle these challenges. We found out that public resources are limited and don't meet the growing investment needs for transport infrastructure. Also, there is a high interdependence between long-distance and urban transport. Mobility patterns are slowly changing. Moreover, there is a gap between the functional reality of urban nodes and their planning instruments. These instruments were limited to administrative borders in the past. Based on these analyses, we developed a concise yet flexible definition of urban nodes to be taken up in the revised TEN-T regulation. An urban node is a functional area where long-distance, regional and local traffic is interconnected. It provides access from and to the European transport network for both freight and passenger transport, including first and last mile connections. Our key messages are that urban nodes are a key element of the transport system where different development interests coincide. Efficient urban nodes are needed for a well-functioning multimodal transport system. Transport planning in urban nodes requires a multi-level governance approach. Urban nodes provide a huge potential for innovation in terms of the transition to zero-carbon transport. The BSR Access project platform welcomes the uptake of urban nodes in the revised TEN-T regulation from December 2021. It gives equal priority to urban nodes as to other priorities in the TEN-T. From our point of view, the selection criteria should focus more specifically on functional areas, not limited to quantitative indicators.